Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I have been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station, WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. It's March, and it's the first Wednesday in March, and I'm back on the air. The show is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel, which is on the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 to 1 p.m. as part of the community strip here on WPKN 89.5 FM. Listener-supported radio, and thank you, all of you who listen regularly to WPKN, and thank you to those of you that tune in regularly to listen to my show. For those of you that are regular listeners, you know, if you want to call me and talk to me about something that's challenging in your life, something that's concerning you, something that you're not sure about how to proceed, or you have some doubts or some difficulty with making a decision, anything that has some emotion in it that's complicating your circumstance that you want to talk to me about, I use my Emotion Roadmap to help you to sort through your options, to think about new options, and to focus on the emotions that are in play that sometimes seems like it generates a magical source of information and options that don't seem to be available any other way. So those of you that are regular listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. Those of you that are new to the show, I'll say a little bit more about the show and what you might want to call about. Typically, I always have something I'd like to talk about at the beginning of the show, kind of to open it up and just have a little bit of dialogue with listeners who like to tune in. This show is this creation of mine that's been on the air. This is our 13th year at WPKN broadcasting and trying to help people all over the world that happen to listen either on podcast at a later time or listen live on the Wednesdays when I'm on the first and second Wednesday of each month. But however you happen to listen or hear about this show, I hope that you're learning how to use the Emotion Roadmap to make your life better. I've been a volunteer at this station for 13 years because one of the colleagues here at the station, Lou Pomalis, a friend and a colleague now, was a graduate student where I was teaching emotional intelligence in organizations. And Lou thought I had something to offer to listeners. And he said, Chuck, would you be willing to come down and offer this idea of an emotion roadmap to everybody in the WPKN community? Because I think so many more people can benefit more than just all of us in your class. And I thought that was a great idea. And I thank Lou. And Lou worked hard to make that happen. And I've been here now 13 years. And it's been a wonderful journey. And I think over the years, I've had some real successes in helping people, and that makes me feel great. One of the reasons I do the show, selfishly, I love when I can help somebody. And if you happen to call in and I help you, not only do I feel good about helping you, but I know everybody that's listening. I'm hoping that all of you who listen learn something that helps you to manage your own emotions more effectively and also helps you to influence the emotions of others. That doesn't mean to control others' emotions, but to influence them for the right things. And so I've got my first caller. Okay. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hello, who's this? Is this Carl?
Okay, you're looking for Carl Frano?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Carl's show just ended, and this is Chuck Wolf, and I think...
I tried to call him, but that B boss would Levy talk to him.
Yeah, so I'm sorry about that. I hope you enjoyed his show. It was great talking to you. You take care now. Bye-bye.
I know. I was going to... Wait a minute. I was going to ask for May 65 since he's got other things organized, you know?
He's not on the air right now, so I'm sorry I can't talk to you. I'm going to have to say
Oh,
goodbye.
great. People tell me to call him.
Okay. Well,
He
you can
told
try
people
later.
to call him.
Yeah. Okay. Listen. You have a nice day. I'm going to have to go because this is my show, and I'm going to be talking to people who want to call me for some help with things that are important
All right,
in their
that's
lives.
good. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. I don't blame somebody for wanting to call Carl Frano. If you've listened to Carl Frano's show, you know what a pleasure it is. I'm always really happy every time I come in to the studio. I have a pretty long ride in the commute, and I get the chance to listen to Carl's show, and it's a pleasure. He does such a great job with music that I grew up on, and a lot of us grew up on, and he's a master at bringing themes and music from the past to life again, with memories of people and places, and information about these wonderful songs that we all grew up with. So I'm sorry I couldn't help you. But if you want to call me, again, this is Chuck Wolf, and the show is The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. The number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Now, again, sometimes I like to come on the show with a particular topic I want to talk about after I say a little bit about what the show is about, because I know lots of times we happen to catch new listeners, people that might just happen to be having lunch now and having to turn on the radio, but don't usually have the opportunity to turn the radio on at this time. So they might be catching the show for the first time, or you happen to be driving through Connecticut and you're hearing the show for the first time. So anyway, for any new listeners, here's what the show is about. A number of years ago, almost 30 years ago now, there was a new science of emotional intelligence that appeared. And it appeared in this way. It was a publication by two psychologists who were researchers primarily, not practicing psychologists, but professors and academics at different universities. One of them today is one of them is now president of Yale University. It happens to be Peter Salovey. And another was Jack Mayer, who's a professor of psychology at the University of New Hampshire. These two gentlemen discovered this idea that we have emotional abilities. And those abilities are very focused abilities. They're abilities to know what someone is feeling. Someone might include a person that you're working closely with. It may be a boss. It may be somebody that works for you. It may be a partner, a spouse, a child, a parent, a colleague, a friend. But anyway, it's the idea of knowing what someone is feeling. We all have the ability to some degree to know what somebody else is feeling. But we differ in this ability. So some of us are great at it, just naturally great at it. For whatever reason, we've either been born with some genetic abilities that have also obviously at times been influenced in a positive way by our experiences. So when you combine really a talent for this genetically, for your what you inherit, as well as what you learn over time because you had good teachers, you had good mentors, your parents talked a lot about emotions, you learned a lot as you were growing up, and so now you're great at this. But a lot of people didn't learn a lot about trying to know what somebody else is feeling. And through trial and error, you got some experience and you brought something with you that you inherited that was giving you some skill in the area, but maybe you're average at this. And then there are people that just had feelings shut off over their lifetime as children in particular, and then have never really got back in touch with feelings and have kind of kept them as best they can apart from their daily experiences. They try not to feel things. But in any case, there are people that are really poor at this ability to know what others are feeling. And the curious thing is, we don't know who you are. You might think you're great and may not be. You might think you're only average and you might be great at this. How do we know? So these psychologists, Peter and Jack, actually created a test that you can test for these things. But it wasn't just knowing what somebody feels. It was also knowing what's the best feeling. What's the best feeling for what you're trying to do? And that's a question I don't think anybody asked before these two psychologists showed up and started talking about this idea that there's an emotional intelligence that's different than analytic intelligence. So what do I mean by the best emotion? Well, let's say that you want to have a brainstorming session where you want all your people on your team to talk about what might be the best possible next product for your group. And you want everybody to feel safe and open and creative, and you want everybody to just want to share their best ideas without worry of criticism. So you certainly don't want people to feel like skeptical. You don't want people to feel challenged and threatened. How do you want people to feel? You want people to feel like it's fun, it's engaging, it's exciting, it's supporting, it's safe. Anything you say, even if other people think it's nutty, people will kind of chuckle and laugh with you, not at you. And it creates an environment that's conducive to creativity. So if you want to have a creative environment, you want a certain set of emotions that are different than the environment that says, okay, now that we've got all our ideas out there, which ones might actually work? And then the emotion changes. Can you see how that happens? The emotion actually changes when you now have to decide what really is possible and what should be our priorities. At that point, the emotions you need are heightened focus, a bit of tension, still openness and support and safe, but more critical, more judgmental. Because now you're at the point where you can't just say and do anything. That part and phase of what the new product development team is engaging in is done. What's next is, how do we decide what we really want to do next based on all this input? Do we have enough input, first of all? And if we do, we feel like we've got enough ideas, and now we just have to decide which ideas are the best ideas and which of them are actually possible, and which are possible in a short time frame, and which do we have to be more strategic about. All those kinds of things require a different set of emotions than the initial emotions for creative meaning. And that's the idea that certain emotions are best suited for a particular task and much better than other emotions. So here's a question that I asked when I began to work with Peter and Jack. I said, they asked me to come in and work with them to help make them all of this information they were discovering about emotional abilities useful. So the first thing I learned about was, okay, they discovered that we have this ability to know what we're feeling and know what others are feeling, and we differ in that ability. We also have an ability to know what emotion is the right emotion for a particular task. Most of that's intuitive. There is no place in my life I remember learning about this that said these are the emotions you want to plan for if this is what you're trying to get done. There's no book out there that says, hey, here's a self-help guide to if this is what you're planning and this is what you want to do, or this is what you want to achieve or get done, this is the best emotion for that circumstance. I mean, there's some chapters and thoughts and ideas out there around these things, but there's no real book or guide. So we have to kind of create that. But I was really struck by this, and I thought, well, what happens if what you're feeling clearly isn't helpful for what you're trying to get done? That's the origin of the emotion roadmap. If what you're feeling isn't helpful to what you're trying to get done, what would be ideal to feel? And if you can talk about and think about and decide what would be ideal to feel, the next part of their model first was identify, then the use of emotion, what emotion's best, and then how do you change emotions? So it's understanding what causes certain emotions and what might change the emotions if the emotions you have are not the ones you want. So if you wanted to change from what you have to what's ideal, the whole concept is around understanding how that happens. And so there's this science that they've developed. It's called the science of emotional intelligence, and you can learn how emotions work. And emotions actually follow certain rules. A quick explanation of that is, let's say that you have somebody that's a little irritating at work. Somebody's doing something that's a bit annoying. Maybe they talk too loud on their phones and you're in a cubicle and you just would like them to sort of be a little more quiet so it's easier for you to concentrate or something like that. And you tolerate it as best you can, but it's starting to bother you, and so you're getting irritated. And so you go out and you see, geez, would you mind? One of the things that I have, it's hard for me, is I have a hard time, separating the noise in my environment out, and your voice is a little too high for me to be able to concentrate. Do you think it would be okay if you talked a little bit more quietly? Would that be all right? And the person says, sure, but then they don't do it. Or maybe they do it for half a day, and then all of a sudden they're back doing it again. And then you go and you see them again about it, and they say, look, I tried. I'm sorry. I just happened to express myself that way. I can't really modulate this. You're just going to have to learn to live with it. So then you go from irritated to frustrated. That's what happens. That's the emotions following certain rules. Something you want to have fixed, you try to get fixed. Person attempts to fix it, then doesn't fix it. It actually gets maybe the same or even worse. And now you find out that the person has stopped trying and it's just not going to be fixed, and you got to live with it. So you can see how emotions might go up sort of a continuum to the point where maybe if you can't get your work done and you're getting criticized and you tell your boss about this and the boss confronts the other person, the person says, it gets into a big argument. Now you're getting angry. That's how emotions follow certain rules. This is an example of that. So anyway, you want to decide if you know how emotions work. That's the first part of the puzzle, to figure out how to get from what you're feeling to what you want to feel. The next part is, how do they work for you? We're not all the same. We have unique beliefs, values, experiences, different ways we filter things. And so when I'm working with you, I know that I want to know how the science impacts what we're talking about, the science of emotion. And I also want to know a bit about you, so I can find out what's going to be motivational to you to make the kind of change we're talking about. And if we're talking about you and being involved with somebody else, how do we impact them? So I want to know what you know about the other person. And that's what the show's about, is trying to help you work through how emotions work, how they're working for you when you're stuck. And by the way, I think smart people that listen to this show, which all of you, I think that listen to this show are smart people. When you're stuck, it's almost always because something emotional is kind of clouding the issue. Something emotional inside you maybe, or something that you're worried about emotionally with somebody else. That's how this all works. I help you think through strategies to address situations, whether at work or at home, in your community, neighborhood, book club, church group, anything really that you might have, relationships that sometimes are not working the way you want. And what I do is I kind of ask you to tell me a bit about it. I kind of walk you through what I just talked about, this idea of, what are people feeling? What would be ideal to feel? How might we get you from what's happening, what is, to what's ideal? How do we do that? And then to consider certain strategies. And then it ends with the last part of the model that Peter and Jack discovered is managing emotions inside yourself and managing your relationships emotionally with others. So the key questions around the strategy that addresses the managing part of the model are these. Now that we've talked about what you want to feel and how it's different than what you are feeling, and we've considered different strategies for how to make the change, because we try to think about several different ways, not just one. What's really possible? What do you really think you're capable of doing? That's number one. That's the first question related to managing. And the second is, even if you're able, the second question is, are you willing? Curiously, we might think that, of course, if I'm able and it's going to make the change I want, I'd be willing. Not always true. And you'll see that if we get to any callers that want to call in and we work through this. So by your calling in, if you've got something you want to talk about, again, something at home, something at work, something in your community, something about, your life outside of your personal experience, I hesitate to bring this up, but I will because it just happened. We listened, perhaps you listened, to the State of the Union address last night. I did listen to President Biden, and I also listened to the governor of Iowa, who had the Republican response to it. And I have my own opinions about that. But if anybody just really wants to talk again about how you're feeling about the State of the Union, how you'd like to feel, and what you'd like to see happen, I'm willing to engage in that today because it's what just happened, and there's lots of things there to potentially talk about. It's not the focus of this show. It won't be political. I won't make judgments. I won't tell you that I like this guy. I didn't like this one person. I don't want to engage in that. But if I can help you to feel better about what's happening, or at least to think through what's happening, I can engage that way. This show's to help you deal with your emotions, and you might feel very emotional about what you heard or thinking about what's going on in today's world. Not just what you heard last night, but how you're feeling actually about how life is in our country right now. What is the State of the Union? How is it making you feel, and how do you want to feel about it? So Let me give you the number to call if you want to call in. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Again, this is Chuck Wolf. This shows the emotion roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And I'll wait a minute and then see if anybody wants to call. Oh, we got a call. Okay, great. Hold on. Oh, can you turn your radio down, please, so we can talk? You got to turn your volume all the way down so I can hear you. I think that's good. Who am I talking to, please? This is Chuck Wolf. You're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry. What was your name?
Oh, gosh, I can hardly hear you.
Let me see if I can put this up a bit. Can you hear me better now?
A little bit better, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for letting me know. What is it? I'm sorry. What was your name? I didn't catch it.
Oh, Grant.
Grant. Okay, Grant. Thanks for calling. How can I help you?
Yeah, I got a situation that really grinds my gears. I actually had to buy my brother out of a piece of property. And this independent assessor is doing the work for the town. And they put the assessment 58% above last year, which I thought was kind of exorbitant. So we had a telephone arrangement with this Verizon Government Solutions. And they were 20 minutes late on a call. And I had already sent them an assessment we had done to buy my brother out, which was done in September. And the property was valued at $700,000. And this place says it's worth $1.1 million. So that's going to really affect my tax base.
Sure.
So when I talked to this lady on the phone, I sent them that assessment and confirmed that they had it on the email. I asked them to confirm. They never confirmed that. I get this lady on the phone, Mary, and she totally unprepared for the conversation and gave me a fictitious address that they had picked against, my property. And it's like, that property doesn't even exist. And it's not of the same caliber anyway. So my son was in the background. He said, "Dad, I've never heard you so condescending in my life." Well, I was angry.
Sure.
That these people were inept
Yep.
are affecting me financially. My taxes will go up over $4,000
Sure.
a year. It's like, oh, you're killing me.
Right.
So I'm not a happy camper.
No, I understand. You're looking for me to give you solutions for dealing with the assessor?
Yeah. How does one handle that kind of emotion where the other party gets you so angry you're nearly red in the face? And it's hard to back off and get clear answers.
So, So Grant, I think, first of all, there's some things I can say just to put some parameters around what we're talking about. One is the cost of everything is like escalating insanely right now. So that, I'm sure. Things where I just was listening to the news on the way in, and somebody had purchased an electric truck.
Again, please.
Somebody, I'm just saying, everything is escalating.
Oh, I think I'm in a dead zone.
All right. Can you hear me or you can't?
No, we're still here.
Okay. All right. Well, what I started to say was I want to put some context. So first of all, I think lots of things are escalating insanely in the last few months. When I was listening to the news and somebody that had put in an order for an electric truck that hadn't come in yet just got an increase of 20% over what they had signed an agreement to purchase it for, because the parts and the cost and the shipping, et cetera, exploded on the person bringing the truck in. And they said, I can't, I just have to pass that on to you. I can't afford not to. And so my point is that I don't know what pricing looks like and whether or not that makes any sense about the escalation you're talking about. it's a possibility is my point. I don't know that's helpful, but I just want to put that context out there. Now, as far as dealing with the people who are not prepared and inept and incompetent, I want to walk through that with you using the model because I think it's helpful because a lot of people run into this stuff, especially in today's world, because in terms of the State of the Union today, lots of people are understaffed. They have people that aren't doing the jobs. They can't afford to get rid of them because they can't find somebody else to do the work. And so I'm finding, too, in certain instances where I've got situations where I need to have people be competent and they're not. And so yet you can't walk away from it because these issues are extremely important, as is yours. So how are you feeling about this and how do you want to feel? Let's start there.
Well, number one, there is something I can do about it. So that'll calm me down. It's like, okay, we'll wait till it gets to the Board of Assessors and review it with the town itself instead of this third party throwing numbers around. Done that before with the town of Plymouth, Connecticut, where I live. So that's kind of settling, let's say.
Okay.
I don't have to get mad at it. It's still upsetting, yeah, but I could step back and look at that idea as a toxic idea. And I don't need toxic ideas. Well, what's a good idea? Well, the good idea is I'll be able to do something about it later on with an appeal with the town.
So you already have a strategy for this, then. I mean, that sounds like a really reasonable strategy, and you feel the toxicity is what showed up when your son made the comment about you being condescending, and so you kind of acted out a bit because why wouldn't you? I mean, not that you should, but I mean, I can understand why you'd feel the way you did. Now, the question is, that's not helpful necessarily to the person on the other end of the line or to you either. It just maybe in the moment feels good because you're just so upset that somebody didn't show up prepared. They were late to the meeting. They picked a fictitious property. I mean, what's the point of you spending your time with somebody who doesn't have a clue about how to address what your needs are?
Yeah, it was almost comical and it was extremely frustrating. So it's like, okay, we're done.
Exactly. So I think, at least in my own experience, what you've said, I think you've got a very rational approach. And if I'm walking you through the roadmap, we talk about, okay, I don't want to feel this anger around this. I want to feel calm and confident. I've got a strategy going forward. And you've already got that.
Right. You know where I learned that from?
Nope.
You ever hear of Eckhart Tolle?
Nope.
I'm surprised.
Okay, but who is Eckhart Tolle?
Check out his book. Which one is it? It's like Living in the Now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know the person, but I'm glad you found something useful in it.
Yeah, you might want to write it down. He's a spiritual teacher. Some people will call him a cult member or cult. No, this guy's spot on.
Okay, no, I appreciate the reference. Let me say a little bit more about the situation, though, because I don't know if you get a resolution at the town board meeting. I don't know, because I mean, one of the things that this other
that's coming, but I don't have to worry about it right now.
Right,
I'll take that when it comes and prepare for it. Deep breath, maybe say a prayer outside town hall. Deep breath. Oh, come on, lean on the face a bit, and try and be calm.
So can I just want to share with you something when I found myself in this spot, something that's worked for me. Maybe it's useful to you and it might be useful to other people to hear it. So let me just share this with you, Grant, if I could. It's the idea when something shows up as incompetence and it's important to me and the people on the other end of the line are incompetent. And I know that after having spent some time with them, but I still have to find a way to get that done. The emotion that's important to me is persistence. I feel like, I don't know if you've ever, the idea of a bulldog, if you know anything about dogs and dog fights, a bulldog, once it locks its jaw on the other dog's neck, you have to kill it in order to get it to release its grip on the other dog. I mean, I take the approach of a bulldog when it's something important because I just don't want to leave any stone unturned in terms of what I need to have happen. And if the person I'm talking to isn't the person that's capable of dealing with that, I keep working to find who is capable. How do I hold people accountable? And I do it in a nice way. I'm not unpleasant about it. I just keep moving forward, though, to find someone in this organization, this first part, because this is a first step that you could try to track down. I'm just saying, for me, I would work maybe a little bit harder with this group to find somebody in that group that does know something that perhaps can influence the assessor board that you're actually going to appeal to, and maybe give you a beneficial ruling before you get in the room. That's what I would do. Just because I found in the past when somebody is incompetent, most people just kind of sit back and think, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" and don't know. But I just don't leave any stone unturned. So the emotion for me is persistence and commitment. I'm not giving up until I find somebody that I can talk to that can help me.
Yeah, that too works. Yeah, I agree with that.
So
and again, what happens, happens.
Right.
If it all goes downhill, acceptance is key, and get on with life.
Yeah, and I think kind of it, one of the things that I find is, if I get just angry, it doesn't help. Anger against an injustice is appropriate as long as you have a way to work through that anger. But to me, it's the anger is kind of in the way of getting something done sometimes. And so I try to change that anger to persistence and commitment and a refusal to go away. You're going to keep listening and hearing from me until I find somebody that knows what they're talking about. I'm going to be nice about it, but I'm not going to give up. So you're going to continue to hear from me till we got there.
So the squeaky wheel gets the grease, sort of thing.
I guess I don't look at it as a squeaky wheel. I just need something that needs to happen. Your organization is responsible for providing some information and people that can help me with this, and I need you to find me someone that I can work with. Otherwise, why do you exist? Right?
Okay.
All right. Well, that's my take on that. All right. Well, Grant, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. I hope that's helpful, and good luck with the assessment.
Yeah, and thanks for your show, and keep up your good work.
Thanks a lot. Take care, Grant. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so that's sort of how the show works, folks. I mean, Grant actually had a pretty good idea about what to do. I just think that for me, as you heard, I would not let go of that first step in the process, and I would make that organization accountable. Why are they there? Why are people being paid to be there? And again, I wouldn't be angry about it because that doesn't serve any purpose. And when you make people defensive, I think you don't get the kind of response you want. I try to do it with a little bit of laughter and a light touch, but I let people know I'm not going away. You're going to have to find somebody that has a real property that really knows what the numbers are and explain to me why this escalation. And by the way, the escalation price, unfortunately, it might actually be legitimate. That's what's so crazy about the inflation we're living with right now. I mean, I know that if any of you have sold your homes recently or had to buy a home, I mean, so many of the homes, people I know that have sold homes had people bidding against one another above the asking price. So what are things really worth today? Maybe a lot more than they were yesterday. And so that's what people are kind of struggling with. But nevertheless, the leap that Grant, you shared with us on the phone sounds wrong. That sounds way too much. So I wish you luck with what you find out and how it works out for you. Okay, if you want to call in again, the number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And I'll give you a minute to call if you'd like to call. I get calls about all kinds of things, and that's the first time I've got a call about an assessment. But it's about a relationship, right? It's about a decision. It's about trying to find out how to deal with the emotions you experience when a person or a process isn't working the way it's supposed to, and it is impacting your life in a way that's important to you. And you're kind of emotional about it and wondering what to do with it. Okay. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Irene.
I'm sorry, Eileen, was it?
Irene.
Irene. Okay. Hi, Irene. How can I help you?
I had something unusual happen to me this week. I was fired from my job.
It's a little hard to hear you. I'm not sure how to help you. Are you in a tough place for your phone, or is it a cell phone?
No, I'm sorry. Is this any better?
Yeah, that's better. Uh-huh.
I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
was fired from my job yesterday.
Okay.
And so I'm 62,
Yep.
and I've never been fired from a job before. It was something I had been there only a few weeks. And
Wow.
I guess it was just miscommunication, and I understand that it was just miscommunication. I guess at the job interview, I didn't think I misrepresented myself in any way, but apparently it didn't work out. And I'm okay with that. And so now I'm looking at my life and going, do I retire? And how do I structure my time going forward and improve my relationships with my children and their children? I'm having 2 little grandchildren this year. I'm very excited. So do you have any ideas for me? Any input?
Yeah, 1,000, because you have so many. those are such different questions, Irene.
I'm sorry.
No. That's fine. Let's take them one at a time. Okay. So the first one is the experience of being fired and never being fired before.
Yeah.
Are you feeling okay about that, or do you want to talk about that? Because go ahead.
I guess I really it had to just be a misunderstanding right from the opening that I don't quite understand, but I'll live with. That's okay, you know.
So, okay. Well, I guess my question is, you said, should you retire or not? So if this is how long had you been out of work before you got this job?
Just for a little bit. I left a long-time employment in the fall, and so not long.
Okay. So you had a job for a very long time, and then what made you leave that job? Were you thinking it was you'd work?
I've been with personal reasons.
So, but you left on your own accord.
Yes.
Okay. Did you leave with good relationships behind you?
Difficult relations. I can't really talk about that.
Okay, fair enough. The reason I was asking the question, because I was trying to understand, do you have good recommendations you can get from that other experience going forward?
Oh, well, so you're looking at my future as an employable
Yeah, well, because that's one of the questions you had was, should I continue and try to find something else to do, or should I retire, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much. That was what I was trying to address, was if you left in a negative way in the long-term relationship, and you just had a sort of an experience that didn't work out for whatever reason, and a very short-term experience, maybe you don't want to be working right now. Maybe that's part of what's happening,
Yeah, I think that's why I'm thinking retirement, that maybe this isn't the time to continue at this point and take a break.
Enjoy
my grandchildren coming into the world right now and focus more on that. So I guess I'm trying to find a way to move away from whatever negative is behind me and move towards some better relationships and some grandma time, some good stuff.
Okay, so let me see if I can tie
right now. And can I say this one other thing?
Sure.
The world right now is such a scary place. When I think of the Ukraine, when I think of what's happening, when I look around me, I'm so my worries are so small.
No, I hear you.
Aren't they?
Yeah, no, I agree with you that it's a very scary place, both external and here.
I kind of agree that there's much bigger fish to fry right now in the world. I mean, there's so many things that we should be.
Well, I mean, I think I think there's a part of everybody that cares about everybody, but I think that most of us, we try to get up and just have a decent day, a good day, and that we try to spend time with the people we care about, that we love, and that if we got a little bit of extra room in our calendar to feel for other people, that we feel for other people. I don't think anybody isn't concerned about what's happening, certainly in Ukraine, I think at the moment.
No, I don't mean to imply that they wouldn't be concerned. I guess it's in the forefront of, I would think, pretty much everybody's minds these days.
It's hard not to, because it's nonstop news coverage about it, and then some of what the Ukrainian people are doing is pretty amazing. If everybody believes, including myself, and it looks like it's going to be a very sad outcome for lots of people, not just the Ukrainians, but even the Russian soldiers.
Well, there's so many dangers. There's so many. The world, our poor world. Anyway.
So that I'm not going to help you solve. I'm not going to help you solve what's happening in Ukraine or Russia. But let me talk to you about what I think is most important to you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So how are you feeling now? Is you feeling, well, it sounds like you're kind of disappointed that what happened happened. I mean, you're sort of accepting of it, but it sounds disappointing.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're trying to decide, do I go back to work? Because the last couple experiences, even the long-term one didn't end that great. And now this one, just maybe it's not the right time. And I'm not really even feeling like I want to go back to work because it's conflicting with how I want to be a grandma now. And I want to spend time with my grandkids, which I'm very excited about. And so somehow I think as I'm listening to you, you want to sort of let go of maybe some, I don't know what it is. Could be something, could be guilt, probably isn't, but maybe related to that somehow you need to be working and somehow you have a message that work is important. And yet at this point in your life, if you can afford not to, you want to actually spend time with loved ones. And that's what you want to feel good about. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound right?
It does.
Okay. So how do you get from letting go of the work stuff and whatever it is that messages in your head that have been there forever around how important it is to be at work and doing something and bringing in an income for whatever reasons that you might have been brought up with and messages that you believe in and that are important to you? How do you let go of that and focus on now's the time for me to be with my loved ones and to be a grandmom? And I think I want to be okay with that. I want to feel great about that. Does that sound right?
It does. Yes, it does.
So the question is, have you ever been before in a situation where you wanted to change what you were doing, but it was hard to let go of where you were in order to move on to something else? Have you ever had an experience where you had to really stop something and let go of it and do something different and it worked and you're able to manage that? Does anything ring a bell where you've ever done that in your life before?
Boy, that's a good question. I'd have to think about it. Nothing springs to mind. I mean, I have been through an awful lot of things, but have I left a lot behind? How much can you leave behind?
Well, consciously let go of something, because that's what that's what you're asking yourself to do now. Maybe there's no history here. Sometimes there is, and it's useful to think about if there is. But let's just talk about it. So part of this is to understand, what do you think is important about work? Let's just kind of talk that through a little bit, just so I understand what your beliefs are and what's important to you around being at work.
I was taught to pull my own weight.
Okay.
That's what I was.
Okay. And so pulling your own weight meant that you went to work and you brought in an income of some kind.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that was a pretty clear message to you all these years that you've carried forward on and you acted on, and you actually, you believed that message was important and you did that. And you've been doing it, I guess, probably since you're a young person, I would suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Was there a message somewhere in there that, at some point you want to let go of work and start to think about, how do I live the last two chapters of my life in a way that isn't about the workplace? Because, it's just, there's an old expression in the work that I do as a psychologist with executives. And one of the things that I'll say to people is that, hey, nobody was ever on their deathbed saying, geez, I wish I spent more time at work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Because I wish I spent more time with my loved ones, with the kids, with my family. And now it's too late. And now for you, it's not too late.
Time. Seize the day.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if you can look at yourself and say, hey, the best possible version of me is the fact that I pulled my weight all these years, and I'm good with that. And now it's time to turn the page to another chapter. And now I want to be good with this. I don't want to be there at the end, at the very end, saying, I missed this opportunity. I missed this chance to be with my family. Yeah. I missed the chance to be a grandma. Right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Does that help?
It does. It really does. And I was so scared to call you. And I thank you for your kindness.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm very happy to talk to you because I think it's something you're going to do next. And I think you're going to do it and with joy and not with trepidation. You're not going to be afraid of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can embrace that. Thank you for your help and have a good rest of your day.
Good, you too.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye now. Okay, folks. Again, that's how it works. So again, I've got time for one more call. If you want to call in, 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Just to kind of go back over with Irene, it was important to understand not about what happened at the workplace. That wasn't what was critical, but her reluctance to let go of work. That was what was important for me to understand in order to be able to help her. So the message, and we all carry messages. They don't always think them through. But the idea for her was, you got to pull your own weight. And she said it in a second, right? She knew that's why she was having a hard time letting go of work. But she's pulled her own weight for a long period of time. And I thought the story I told about the person on the deathbed saying, hey, I don't wish I spent more time at work. Nobody says that. I shouldn't say nobody, but very few people ever say that. Everybody feels like they wish they'd spend more time with their family. And now, in your 60s, you got time. You should have time. So anyway, that's my story. Okay. Let me just, I want to share with you actually something. So if you want to call, great. But if you don't, I've got a story I'm going to tell you. So the number to call, I'll give you another chance, 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Okay. So what I want to tell you is that I've had the chance, a really wonderful opportunity to work with several small business people in the last year or so, where we are actually working with the owners, and the owners are, it's family-owned business, two owners, and they're managers. And they have several different businesses that they share co-ownership responsibility for. And one of the things that we've been doing is we've been going through some exercises to teach people what I do on the radio show all the time, is the idea of how this emotion roadmap works. Remember, it's deciding what it is you're trying to get done, thinking about how you're feeling about that, how, if there are others involved, how he or she or they are feeling about that same situation, what would be ideal to feel if it's not what you're feeling, if what you're feeling is not ideal, based on this idea, as I mentioned earlier in the show, that there are certain emotions that are better than other emotions for a particular task. And what the emotions you currently feel are not the ones that are best for what you're trying to get done. So what is best? What are the best emotions? What are the ideal emotions? Trying to figure that out first, after you know what you are feeling. Then realizing there's a gap between what you are feeling and what you want to feel, what would be ideal to feel. How do you make that happen? How do you understand that? And so, again, sometimes it's about the science of emotion. With Grant's example, it was really a neat one because he already had thought about it. I mean, he was calling just to see if there's anything else I could advise. And I think I gave him something because I think he shouldn't ignore this first step in the process of the assessment and appeal process. So I think I maybe gave him something useful there. And the idea of what do you want to feel when something seems unjust to you? And it's really critically important to your life. To me, that's where I become persistent and committed to making something happen. I don't get angry about it, but I'm dogged about it. I'm determined. I'm not going to let go until I find someone competent to deal with. And I think that's a helpful strategy for any of you who are facing things where you call up, you get somebody who doesn't know anything about your situation, and you just feel defeated and you put the phone down and you're just kind of depressed. Don't stop there. Call back again. See if you get somebody else. Ask to talk to a supervisor. Go down in the office. Tell them what you're looking for. Is there anybody that knows anything about my situation? I don't want to leave until you tell me who I can talk to that knows something. Otherwise, I'm going to write to people that are paying your salaries. I mean, at some point, I got to hold people accountable. Just because I think you're supposed to do this, maybe I'm misinformed. If I am, tell me. But if I'm not, you're supposed to help me with this, and you're not, who do I contact next? Because that's unacceptable. And I want to be nice about it. So if all I need is just somebody to work with me that's going to help me. And you'd be surprised. People start showing up and start helping. So I hope that's helpful to all of you who are listening. That's what Grant needed. For Irene, it was more to understand the message that she was carrying around that was so hard to let go of, which is, I need to pull my own weight. Well, you have pulled your own weight. You have. You met that challenge and you did it successfully for a lot of years. I think maybe going back to work was like, because when she left the other place, she thought she had to pull weight and she picked something that really wasn't maybe the right spot. And so it didn't work out right away because she didn't really want it to work. We kind of self-sabotage ourselves when we're conflicted and we show up for something that we really don't want to do, but we think we need to do. And the thing that she wanted to do, I think I helped her to say, that's the time now, is to be a loving grandmom. That's what this time is about. That's the next chapters. So that's how it works. But with this group that I'm working with in they're in the Midwest, we are meeting regularly. And I have some things that I teach. I mean, I don't always just have people call like this, but I have curriculum or examples. Sometimes I'll use a call, like one of the calls today, perhaps, in one of my classes. It's public record once you call the radio station, right? But I don't say nobody knows who you are anyway. I don't even know if I've got your right first name. But just the idea of how to understand how to help people using this model. I want to use real life examples. It's wonderful to be able to use real life examples of how people actually benefit from thinking about how am I feeling? How do I want to feel based on what I'm trying to get done? How do I get from what I am feeling to what I want to feel? And of the strategies I think about, which ones am I actually willing and able to do? That's it. That's what I'm teaching. And this community has come together. Now, you can imagine that in operating managers and small businesses, sitting in a training room, in a Zoom particularly, for 2 hours is like, really? Do I have to do that? I got so much stuff in my inbox. I got so many phone calls to answer. I've got so many other things that are pressing on me, including stuff at home. If I'm taking any time out of the work day, I want to do something that needs to get done at home because I'm overwhelmed with stuff all the time. But what we're doing together is we're asking people to come in and share their stories. Sometimes their stories are about at home. They're not always about work, but sometimes they're about work or at home. And they're sharing situations where they're actually better. Life is better for them as a result of using this construct, this emotion roadmap, to guide the way they talk to one another, to guide the way they interact with people at home. When they're sharing something personal about their home life, I ask everybody, I say, I'm going to share my ideas about this and guide the discussion, but what do you think everybody's feeling in this example that you just heard? Who are the key people? What is each one feeling? What do you think? What would be ideal to feel? Why do you think it would be ideal to feel? And the community is coming together, and it feels different. It feels like we're building camaraderie across, all these people know each other, but they don't know each other well, and they don't know each other in the kinds of ways that get communicated when people are talking about stuff that's involving their emotions. And then they're doing it in the workplace. They're coming together. In one particular case this past week, we actually had somebody come in and she said, I'm so happy, I'm so proud that I'm using this tool this way. And she sat down with a person that she had a disagreement with. Something happened that the other person shouldn't have done. And she said, hey, look, I want to walk through with the tool we've been using, the emotion roadmap. I want to talk about a situation that happened with you and I, something I thought shouldn't have happened the way it did. And I want to talk about how I'm feeling and how I think you're feeling about it. And I want to talk about how I'd like to feel and how I'd like you to feel about it. And then I'd like to talk about strategies about how do we turn this around and make this better. And they both engaged in it because they both knew that the idea of using the emotion roadmap was to say, hey, I want to work this out with you. I don't want to just be mad. I don't want to yell. I don't want to be upset. I just want to make something better that needs to be better. And I want to walk through it in using this process because I think by paying attention to how each of us is feeling, by really focusing on how each of us is feeling, we're going to come out of this feeling pretty good about this instead of feeling badly about that it happened or that I'm coming in and I'm criticizing you or I'm judging you or whatever it might be that we might have felt otherwise. Because I don't want that to be the case. I just want to make it better. And by making it better, I also want to pay attention to how I'm feeling. I'd like you to pay attention to that too. And I'm going to pay attention to how you're feeling. Because I want us to feel supported, respected, and appreciative of the kind of dialogue we're now having instead of the one we might have had if we weren't using this tool. So I'm feeling really excited about that because I think ideally over time, you don't need me in the room. That's why I hope that those of you that are regular listeners, at some point, you're doing this for yourself. In fact, maybe at some point I'll ask people if you've ever used the roadmap on your own and you've had some good success with it, give me a call. Share your story. Because one of the reasons I do this show over all these years is that not just because I help people, because it feels great. I think I helped Grant. I think I helped Irene, and it feels great that I was able to do that. But hopefully each of you listening got some help too in thinking about how this works. And maybe you're facing some similar things. Not necessarily an assessment problem, but maybe you got a problem that you're fighting with some people that are seemingly incompetent to you, and you're stuck, and it's important stuff, and you want to have strategies for dealing with it more effectively. Maybe that was helpful, what I said to Grant at the end. And maybe you're somebody towards the end of your career and thinking about, hey, how do I let go of work? It's been part of my life forever. As far as I can remember, I've been working. By the way, I work now because I like working, but I don't work all the time, and I have grandkids, and I spend time with my grandkids, and I make sure I'm balancing all of that because I'm able to. But I worked really hard for a lot of years, but still try to always manage to make sure that I didn't leave the important people behind just to be good at what I did at work. I knew it was important to carry not only my own weight, but to carry the weight of my family as over the years. And I've done that and feel good about it. But I also feel great about the time we're spending with family now and with our grandkids. So everybody, I hope you have a good week. I'll be back with you next week. Thank you so much for listening. This is Chuck Wolf. You've been listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. WPKN 89.5 FM.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.